with the recent mass shooting, I felt like maybe this is an appropriate time to explain when, me and the guys had to deal with some gunfire. Now, it's like I was said in a previous video, normally on door, don't generally have the firearm unless, I have some reason to put it in my holster, maybe like the situation I explained in that one video, or, just you get a feeling, or you see, all types of more shady shit going on towards closing. So then you might be like, I'm gonna go to the car and get the gun. You know what I mean? Just to have it on me, especially, but at this point, most of the dancers were gone. And, there's a couple waitresses and, us actually doing like real cleaning and work in the club. So, it's not really useful for me doing that type of stuff and heavy cleaning, with my firearm right here. And, the doors are locked, we're just chilling. But, a waitress had stayed a bit longer. So I go out to walk her, not really thinking, much of it. And, I hear a sound that sounded like a firework, and we're like, oh man, maybe fireworks. And then, and we were just like, oh shit. So, we get down, and, I'm behind this pillar, and one of the DJs is actually at the next one, and he's down, because shooting's going on still. And I'm like, hey, you think I should go get my gun? He's like, yeah, I think that would be a good fucking idea. He's yelling it, over top gunfire. And, and more shots come, and so I just dart for my vehicle, right? As I'm running, I see masses of people coming across the street our way from where the shooting is taking place. And some of them are falling in the street. Now, as I'm running, I'm thinking that they're being shot, right? But they're falling over themselves is what's happening. And they're screaming about, the gunfire, which obviously we all hear. So, get to my car, pull out, the pistol, and I'm down, kind of like by my, the driver's side door and the engine block kind of like, area. And I hear to my right, one of the guys that I work with, he's an ex-cop. And so, he's facing back this way because we do have an entrance where people would be able to come bother. This place, the parking lot fucking sucks, man. There's all types of ways to get in. So he's facing towards the back, and, he said shit's clear, right? And I'm looking dead center, from this side of the building, but from where my car is, and I'm, and for him to, this is center. And so I'm like, yeah, we're clear. And then up comes, behind me, I feel the tap, and it's my mentor. This is one of my mentors in the club game. This is a guy, he's like one of the Sam Elliott's to my Patrick Swayze, if you will, Roadhouse. Not that I'm that cool, but you know what I'm trying to say. So he comes up behind me and says, hey, behind you, brother. And I'm like, okay. And he moved up, and he, made sure that the left side, he's making sure that that's clear. So we're all clear. So, I'm just waiting, man. Like, the adrenaline is insane. You know what I'm saying? It's like this weird mix of like deathly fear and hyped up, but laser focus, right? And I'm pointing down range, and I move up to back him up because I felt like he was going into kind of a vulnerable, situation, and there is still gunfire, because it's kind of like a gang situation. You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, we don't know for sure that they are street gangs, but it was, definitely, as Willem Dafoe, a firefight, And so, I move up to back him up for a second. But then I hear my homie, the ex-cop, over here on the side, and he's actually got somebody held up. He's like, it turns out he's got one of the guys from the shooting. That guy flipped out when his buddies started blasting. And so that guy, tried to sneak. And I think that the ex-cop had seen that, because his eyes, of course, when it comes to this type of, the urban environment, stuff like that, his eyes are a little more attuned to it being a battlefield, for him. Whereas for me, I'm adjusting, right? And so you hear him giving the commands, lift your shirt, and then I guess he did, and I like him, and then he's like, step back towards the side, my boys, like, that whole thing. And so, I let, let's call him Sam Elliott, so I let Sam Elliott know, hey brother, I'm gonna, back up the ex-cop, and which is fine because Sam Elliott's, once again, I'm calling him Sam Elliott for this video. Sam Elliott is not involved here. He's a famous actor. Anyway, so he's got, he's fine. He's actually about to start talking to, the girls and stuff who are still here on the other side of the door, let them know that things might be okay, because it's, started to quiet down the gunfire, slowing down, and it's almost dead now. So he's, essentially covering that. And so I get a feeling that I should kind of back up the ex-cop. And so, once I come out of, that position that I was at earlier to come, see what's going on with him, I make myself visible. I'm out of concealment now, So the kid sees me, and he's already held up by the ex-cop dude. And then he sees me, and he just goes, "I don't want to die." And I tried not to, laugh, but it was kind of goofy. And so then I notice a van pull up. And this kid had already expressed that his boys are the one fucking doing most of the blasting over there, right? So when they pull up over, kind of far a little bit, because they're in the road from the ex-cop and, what's happening with that. And so I get to a new position because I'm looking at that fucking van. All I can think is that those doors slide open, and I even hear a sound or a muzzle flash. I'm emptying my fucking clip downrange into that fucking open door of that fucking van. I'm turning that shit into Swiss cheese. I'm shooting the driver. Everyone's gonna fucking die, right? This is where my head is at. Well, ex-cop is pretty experienced. So by the time, as soon as that van pulled up, his gun, he kind of had it, he's just standing with it now. He's not doing this anymore. And so the kid, seeing his opening, seeing his buddies, and they're yelling, "Get in the fuck, come on out, get the fuck back, go." So he runs, jumps in, and it peels out because it's got to get out of Dodge. You know what I'm saying? They got to get the fuck out. Police are probably coming, right? Well, actually, interestingly enough, because we're not in the best neighborhood, the cops actually didn't show up until much later, once we ourselves called them just to let them know, there was a situation. No one in the neighborhood called. Nobody reported gunshots. Yeah, sometimes, the cops aren't there not because they don't give a shit, but because they don't fucking know. Anyways, so things become much calmer. We kind of talked with the police a little bit. The cops were very happy that we all had guns. So, I always thought that was interesting about the police, because, people are like, "Yeah, man, fucking cops, we gotta be worried." Which, yeah, if cops shoot you gotta be worried, right? But a lot of them seem to want us to have firearms. So I think that's something to kind of look at, Either way. So I bring this story up because, as you kind of notice in the story, there's nothing high speed really crazy there. You know what I mean? This wasn't some big, I'm not some badass dude that Joe Rogan is going to have on because look at which action you've seen, right? But it taught me something, really. Because a lot of us, we carry firearms. We want to be able to return fire towards a bad guy, and we want to be able to, handle these things and do stuff, under pressure and whatnot, because if you're carrying a gun, you're saying that when some horrible event presents itself to you, you want to deal with it, right? Now, if you're by yourself, I recommend you getting to safety and concealment or whatever. If you have to fire to get away, sure, but my heart does go out to you, though, if you take it upon yourself to stop an active shooter, because you are defending people in this country from a domestic threat, you know what I'm saying? And that has my fucking respect, especially if you do it by yourself. But just wanted to say, the man to your left and right, when people talk about that a lot, that was just the main factor of how I felt comfortable being in this situation. I've never seen combat. I served, but I've never seen combat. And you never really know what you're gonna do. And honestly, the fact that they were there, one of my mentors, Mr. Sam Elliott, and codename Sam Elliott, and the ex-cop, it's like, if I was by myself, I still would have had to handle it because I was working. I'm at my job. I can't leave. You know what I'm saying? Like, literally my position is to hold position. That's the point. You're doorman, you know. But I mean, if I was by myself somewhere, you know, and like, um, shooting erupted or whatever, you know, even though I had this cold steel in my hand, you know, I had this powerful thing in my hand, um, I didn't feel very empowered for me. You know what I'm saying? That doesn't sound great because I come from a long line of warriors, you know, in Africa. You know, my grandfather rode a horse, had a gun and a sword, and my great grandfather fought, you know, for the king. And there's all this crazy shit. You know, my ancestors, you know, it's all written here in my arm. They're not a joke. And I just felt like, you know, you put that steel in my hand, I'm good. You know what I'm saying? Like I guess what I'm saying is that the will to kill or to do harm to the enemy was not as powerful of a feeling as I was hoping it would be. To see me through all kinds of fear and problems that with, you know, being, you know, in the battlefield, quote unquote, you know, gunfire, whatever. Um, and that question wasn't truly answered to me because all I cared about was not letting these dudes down. And not just some stupid, oh, I don't want to be a coward. I don't want people to say that I was a coward. Not even that, man. You don't have time to think about that. Or at least I didn't. All I could think about was, you know, the man to my left and right. Literally, in this position, this time, you know, I was like, you know, I'm in the middle. Literally, the man to my left and the man to my right. And that's all I could think about, you know? You know, so the point of this video is not to say like, oh, here's the truth about having a gun or using a gun or being around gunfire or anything like that. Just that when you buy that gun or you put that cold steel in your hands and feel the weight of it and the fact that you're gonna be okay, that your anger at the enemy who has presented themselves and brought this horror to you, that feeling by itself is going to see you through. And I always thought that. And it just wasn't present when the situation happened. All that was happening in my head was man to my left and right. It's the only thing I gave a fuck about. You know, so, you know, I mean, I know there's guys out there who are like, well, you know, I mean, I was in a gang or I did this and, you know, I wanted to blast the fuck out of people. You know, you went towards the enemy or maybe, you know, depending on what your operations were, you know, on deployment or whatever that you, like, I'm always talking about taking the fight to the enemy. But when I say that, I'm talking about hands and, you know, knives and stuff like, because that's kind of how I came up, martial arts and whatever. But yeah, man, the jury is still out on if I myself would just turn into a Billy Badass when there's an active shooter and put him down. You know, I hope so. I hope so because I won't be able to live with myself if I didn't do it. But I've had situations where something happened or, you know, there was some crazy guy running around and I pulled out my firearm, and when that was happening and I didn't have other guys to worry about, I didn't feel that strong, man.